I was there once in Las Vegas at the Hilton. The fans were ripping the place apart, screaming. They were going crazy. And they announced Elvis has left the house. Elvis. If they didn't say that, I think I'd still be there. Maybe I wouldn't be here. But they had to do that. Elvis is gone. Elvis has left.
Yes, Elvis has left the house. Elvis has disembarked from the cul-de-sac. Elvis has exited the gazebo. My God. The correct quote, of course, is Elvis has left the building, as you've heard a million times before. That is a very odd quote to get wrong. And to deliver it with such enthusiasm. I was there once. It was so great. I'm not being forced to say this. There's not a man behind me with a napkin soaked in chloroform. Yeah, that was a very enthusiastic presentation of the Medal of Freedom to the late, great Elvis Presley, who, of course, died under unknown circumstances while on the toilet. Circumstances which may or may not involve his regular heartbeat, which he's had since birth, but has never caused him any harm before. But again, it's a big mystery. Seriously, just Google the video of the autopsy report and the coroner's announcement about Elvis's death. It's, this is the sort of thing where you never really can figure it out. And it should be expected that we'll never know the cause. It may or may not have involved the irregular heartbeat. What's important is it's a mystery. One which we won't discuss because, again, an American icon died on the toilet, and we must swear to never speak of it again. So he gets the Medal of Freedom. Elvis has been on the receiving end of several presidential honors, including many in his own lifetime. I'm sure he would have been honored by this, just as during what I believe was a cocaine, possibly Quaaludes as well. Put it this way, let's just issue a blanket statement. In a drug-induced frenzy, Elvis drove from Graceland to the Nixon-inhabited White House and said, I want a badge. I want to be a drug enforcement officer because drugs are so bad. Meanwhile, his pupils are the size of like quarters. He's sweating, he's shaking, he's rambling, he's stuttering and mumbling. And the president's like, my popularity rating isn't great. Elvis Presley's here, wants to be made an honorary DEA agent. Let's do this thing. So it's always interesting when a president invokes Elvis in any capacity. And it's especially interesting when he does it so enthusiastically like that and places himself at the actual scene. I was there when it happened. Everyone was so excited. And that audio was garbage. I hope you don't attribute that to my brand new audio setup here for the Matt Sager podcast. That was just terrible audio, but it was all that was available. It was how he sounded at the time. Kind of like Elvis, to be honest with you. Late stage Elvis. And with that, welcome to the Matt Sager podcast, this Tuesday, November 20th. What are your plans for Thanksgiving? I am currently deciding as to whether or not I'm going to be able to make it work with my family. I really, really want to. It's not totally clear that I'll be able to. But regardless, I'm mulling over the possibility of doing an episode of this podcast on Thanksgiving. So if you're interested, if you are thinking that you'd be interested in hearing a new show on Thanksgiving, or if you're just hanging out with the family, binging on turkey, watching football, could give a crap what's going on with Matt Sager, let me know either way, and that will influence my decision. You can hit me up on email, matt@mattsager.com, or call 646-535-4788. I've got a voicemail box. You can leave messages there. And of course, I'll give out many more social media links at the end of tonight's episode. So I have to correct myself again regarding Megyn Kelly. When I first heard that NBC was considering firing her for her just really despicable, horrifying comments, which were still somehow entirely predictable, how anyone thought Megyn Kelly was anything other than a racist, or shall we say, I guess you got to be generous now. Now the whole deal is that racist people get really upset and triggered when you call them racist. So at the very least, let us say she was being extremely racially insensitive when she made this remark on the last appearance she made on the Today Show.
You do get in trouble if you are a white person who puts on blackface for Halloween, or a black person who puts on whiteface for Halloween. Like, back when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up as like a character.
If somebody feels like something is offensive to them, then you should say it, and that's fair game. And you should be able to take it if you're going to dress up like that.
Yeah, you got to be able to take it. On Halloween, you've got guys running around with fake axes coming out of their head.
But what I'm saying
it's gonna be jarring.
Right, but what I'm saying is, in polite society, someone who's raised would not think that dressing as a Nazi is okay.
Wow. Yeah. Now we're dressing as Nazis. We're comparing blackface to having axes in our heads. When I was a kid, blackface was okay. Everything about that is so wrong and yet so completely predictable if you're NBC and you hire Megyn Kelly because you want those Trump viewers. You have to understand that she comes with baggage. There is no video of Megyn Kelly saying, here's something racially tolerant. Here's a way you can be friends with your neighbor. She's known for saying Santa is white. Jesus is white. They hired her based on those credentials. So this is entirely on NBC, who of course should have been cognizant of this mistake before they signed her. She's not a stable person. She doesn't handle herself well on camera. She's confrontational. She's hateful. She's divisive. On one of her earliest appearances on the Today Show, she had Jane Fonda on as a guest. And Jane Fonda wants to promote this movie she's doing. And Megyn Kelly goes, so tell me about all your plastic surgery. Jane's like, well, maybe we'll get to that in a bit, but I'm here to talk about this film. She goes, no. How much plastic surgery was there? And does it make you feel empowered, or is it because you're just old? And Jane Fonda was like, what is wrong with you? What makes you think this is somehow appropriate? Just a horrible way to treat a guest. And then the relaunched Will and Grace cast showed up thinking they were just doing an appearance on the Today Show. They weren't even aware that an entire hour had now been dedicated to Megyn Kelly. Because the funny thing is, as eager as NBC was to hire her, they were sort of embarrassed and aware that they'd made a big screw up from the start. So they would book people and say, no, you're coming on the Today Show. Because they knew if they said Megyn Kelly, people wouldn't come. But so the cast of Will and Grace shows up, a show that's done a lot since its debut in the 90s to help us get culturally aware to the extent that we are today. It normalized the fact that people can be of different sexual preferences, that straight people and gay people can co-inhabit the same universe without either side freaking out, that we're all just people. And now, having created and nurtured this environment, the show relaunched. And they're going to come promote it on the Today Show, and oh crap, look at this. Who's interviewing us? It's Megyn Kelly, who goes all in on, so, gay this, gay that, gay. It's horrifying, right? It's shocking, isn't it? No, we're just really happy to be back. And we're all about everyone being on a level playing field here. We're all about people understanding one another and about not stigmatizing gender preference. How is this hard for you to understand? Well, she is still locked in this. Right-wingers have taken to using a phrase called NPC. It's the new snowflake. It's the new libtard or whatever ad hominem they're using now. The idea is that an NPC in a role-playing game, certainly in a computerized role-playing game like Baldur's Gate or Icewind Dale or Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, games like that. It stands for non-player characters. And the idea is that they're there to give you a quest, and they've got a script that they follow. So you're never going to say anything to them to which they're going to answer in any but one of three different ways. You can say, I accept your quest, and they'll say, oh, thank you, good sir. When you return, I'll give you all the acorns in the forest. You can say no, and they'll say, oh, please, sir, my daughter is dying from rubella, or some fictional medieval disease that only takes place in the world of D&D. But that's it. And when you return, with or without having saved the missing princess or what have you, you'll either be given all the acorns in a pre-written speech, or you'll come back without the princess and you'll be given a talking to that follows, again, a script. Megyn Kelly is an NPC. She is trapped in a Fox News nightmare in which everything comes down to racial division, partisan division, hatred, intolerance, and othering anyone who is not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person. And so NBC was completely foolish in their decision to bring her on board. They were hedging their bets because they saw the landscape was changing. We've elected Trump. Apparently we want some right-wingers on our channel, but we're going to be too embarrassed to admit it to anybody. But how wrong could it possibly go? How bad could things possibly get? Well, it's now a few months later. She's gone public with saying, blackface is totally fine. What's the issue here? Come on, when I was a kid, everyone wore blackface. So as far as my correction goes, when I first made the announcement that they were considering firing her, a consideration that should have taken no more than 3 seconds, I said her exit package was between 17 and 30 million. Later on, I received other reports, conflicting reports, which I stated on this podcast, stating that her exit package was actually going to be 69 million. Well, it's changed again. As of today, November 20th, according to The Cut and several others, including Page 6, TV Line, basically all of the interwebs that covers this sort of thing, it's somewhere above 30 million. Apparently not much more than that. Like not 69 million, but somewhere between 30 and, who knows, possibly as much as 40, 45 million, just to leave, just to remove her stink from NBC. I dearly hope that NBC has learned from this catastrophe, that they're essentially paying someone an outstanding amount of money. Even when you're NBC, 30, 40 million is not something you gamble away like this. And so don't make these reckless, foolish hires of people with a record of just hatred. And yes, we are living in the age of outrage where everyone is perpetually enraged about something. But as an executive in charge of television, it is your responsibility to look at potential talent for your network View their previous performances and say to yourself, is this on brand for NBC? Santa is white. Jesus is white. Is there any footage of her doing anything that isn't hateful and obscene? Oh, well, she kind of sort of took a stand for women in defending herself against Donald Trump. But no, I have yet to see her do anything other than try and spread hatred and division and stupidity and misinformation. And so NBC is out 30 to 40 million, and deservedly so. Not that Megyn Kelly deserves their money, but they deserve the good shellacking that they're getting in the press, and they deserve to lose a ton of money for hiring someone who is doing further harm to our country at a time when we really don't need further division. And speaking of, Mark Zuckerberg did an interview today. That story is ongoing, this issue with Facebook and this shocking revelation in the New York Times the other day. That they don't care about the Russia hacking, that they're not acting on it, and that I can't believe I'm saying this about Facebook, but it is the clear, obvious truth. To prevent scrutiny and to protect their personal reputations, CEO Mark Zuckerberg and COO Sheryl Sandberg have resorted to classic anti-Semitic tactics, which is really horrifying, really sickening, and I believe will spell the end for them. The thing is, though, that this is another part of the age we live in, where people go, wow, this is crazy. Look how much evidence Mueller has. Wow, oh my God, Louis C.K. can never perform comedy again. It's all over for him. And then the news cycle rinses and repeats. And Mueller's still just quietly doing whatever he's doing. Trump continues to be ever further. I mean, look, he just said Elvis left the house, okay? He is out of control. What's Mueller doing? When is he doing it? Is anything going to happen from this? Has firing Jeff Sessions and replacing him with Matthew Whitaker, does that mean that Mueller has essentially been neutered? Who knows? And Louis C.K., he's right down the block from me, not tonight, but quite often. He has an open invitation to return to the Comedy Cellar anytime he wants, and he's done so a few times. It's rather sickening, but again, what I'm saying is we can't really know for sure how any of this stuff's going to play out. On the other hand, there are the good news stories like that Pharma Bro douchebag, Martin Shkreli, the guy who took life-saving drugs that were like 12 cents and raised their price by something like 18,000, was called before the Senate and the Congress and was questioned again and again and again. And all he ever did was smirk, refused to answer questions, smirk some more. He loved to boast that he had the only copy of this one Wu-Tang album. And the Wu-Tang Clan were like, oh man, we want you dead so bad. How in the hell did our album end up in your hands, you grinning little milky white piece of shit? And he is now in prison. I believe he's in Gen Pop. Hopefully he's going to meet up with Takahashi 6i9 $, whatever the hell that guy's up to. So sometimes people pay a price. Facebook may be one of these instances. Not necessarily the platform itself, although possibly. It is, as we now know, completely infested with foreign operatives, running psyops, hacks, bots, misinformation, propaganda. It's entirely possible that this would be a little bit more certain in more certain times under more stable leadership, but it's completely possible that it will be ordered to just simply dismantle and break itself up. Or similarly, it could be regulated, taken over as a utility by the government. I don't know how much good that would do because, again, our government is in... Elvis left the house, okay? The government is in shambles. And when I first reported on this story the other day about Facebook's knowing and deliberate negligence in response to the ongoing Russia hacks, their use of anti-Semitism as a smokescreen, blaming the accusations that were entirely true on George Soros, which is the most anti-Semitic trope around, and then doubling back and hiring Jewish lobbyists to pose next to them. It was a two-pronged anti-Semitic smokescreen. First, for the right-wingers who were going after them, they blamed it on Soros. Then when Democrats went after them and said, hey, we've noticed that there are still quite a few Russians hacking and sowing doubt and fear and spreading propaganda on your platform, what do you have to say? They said, well, we're standing next to the head of the ADL. You must be an anti-Semite to say that. So it was just a very cynical, really hateful. It's not like I thought Mark Zuckerberg was some paragon of virtue. I don't think anyone's been of that opinion. There was that film, The Social Network, that frankly I think portrayed him in ultimately a more flattering light than I think he deserved. But I don't think anyone thought of him as anything other than a quite lucky, sort of intelligent, autistic man. When you see him in interviews, when you see him go before Senate subcommittees, I can't imagine what it's like being a Facebook employee and being present for these many meetings he's been having lately. Because his face, his expression, it doesn't change. It's like he's got Botox or something. But it's that he does not know how to express emotion. His tone doesn't change. It's very flat, very staid, very just dull and sort of disinterested. And his eyes are always sort of wandering to the floor. The hero that has really been deflated here, the figurehead who is really going to take a hit, who has a hit to take, is Sheryl Sandberg, the chief operating officer, who at age 43, 5 years ago, published a book called Lean In that was a feminist manifesto about not letting yourself be pushed around at work, about knowing your own value, about staying true to yourself. And it turns out she's this horrible corporate shill. That is not something that feminism wants to be associated with, nor should it. And it does look like it's the end, at least for Zuckerberg. He's giving these very defiant interviews today. He gave an exclusive one to CNN saying, I'm not stepping down as CEO, and Sheryl's not stepping down as COO. Well, okay, well, what about the hacks? What about the bots? What about the propaganda? Well, this is all very serious. Yes, we know. That's why we asked, what are you going to do about the propaganda? I'm going to take it really seriously. So he's just a slacker dickbag. Meanwhile, he's holding these meetings at Facebook's compound, which, as I said, must be very uncomfortable because half the staff there are security people who know that this problem is real. A fraction of those know that it's real and don't care because they're so in the tank for Trump, and they want Russia protected. Now, the ramifications of what that means, that we're Trump fans and therefore we want Russia to not be mentioned in any of our propaganda documents, in any of our statements to the press about how we're dealing with these foreign operatives. We can't use the word Russia. What does that mean about Trump, or at the very least what they think of Trump? Who knows? But it's creepy and disturbing. Another thing I wanted to follow up tonight, real quick. I got an email today that pointed out a failing I made in a recent episode. At the beginning of last week, I had a whole big stockpile of notes that I'd gathered from emails and tweets and DMs and Facebook messages and messages sent to me from listeners across all sorts of platforms, saying that I had promised I was going to address this Netflix memo that is now 2 weeks old, a story that was published in the Wall Street Journal about an environment at Netflix that sounds pretty cutthroat and pretty nasty. And I said, I think it's more complicated than it's being reported as, but I'll go into that in further detail later in the week. And then the week just came and went, and there was just too much other stuff going on. So it is true, I have not addressed the memo. Now, I do think it's become old enough news that I actually don't think you care. But if you'd like me to do a manifesto on it, I do have a spiel, I do have a take, I do have my opinion on it. And it is actually relatively nuanced. But if you're just done with this story, if you've moved on to the million crazy things that have happened since, I wouldn't blame you. So let me know either way. Get in touch with me via email, matt@mattsager.com, or call 646-535-4788, or hit me up on Twitter, @Matt Sager, or on Instagram, Real Matt Sager, and on Facebook, The Matt Sager. Also, while you're there, check out my voiceover page, Matt Sager VO, and of course, check out this podcast page, Matt Sager Podcast. Also, look at the links in the description for tonight's podcast episode. You'll see my new Patreon and my brand new merch store from my friends at wehavemerch.com. Please check out both. And for all my other social media links, along with my voiceover reels, contact info, more episodes of this podcast, articles, blog posts, and a whole lot more. You can find all that at my website, mattsagervoiceover.com.